Okay, good morning. We're holding in Torah Parshas Vayishlach, page 48. Till now, the Alter Rebbe was explaining that Alpi Chassidus and in a mystical manner, the Yaakov Avinu coming to Esav and telling Esav and sending messengers, Malachim, and telling him that I want to make peace with you. Yaakov was trying to connect the level of Tohu with Tikkun with Tohu. And we explained by Arichos exactly who the source of Yaakov. The source of Yaakov is Tikkun, and the source of Esav is Tohu. And Yaakov felt that after all these years, Esav is ready to now connect his source of Tohu with Tikkun, which is a much higher level than Tikkun. And the Malachim came back and basically told Yaakov that he's not ready. He's at the same level. And then the Alter Rebbe explained that the Yaakov realized that if he wants to connect the level of Tohu into Tikkun, he has to basically do it himself. So we're holding page 48, Dibra Mascha Vayemer Yaakov. Okay, so now he says, Vayemer Yaakov Elokei Avi Avram. So Yaakov said, this Hashem of my father Avram. And then the pasuk goes on and says that that he's asking Hashem basically a bracha to be with him. So the Alter Rebbe explains, Pirish, what does this mean? He davened to Hashem that the makifim, the holy encompassing lights, should of the Ovis said that Avram, that Yaakov asked that these holy lights of the Ovis should be drawn down to him in order to assist him and enable him to draw down also the makif of Tohu to reveal in the Tikkun. So when Yaakov was saying Elokei Avi Avram, Elokei Avi Yitzchak, Hashem Omer Elai Shuv La'artzecha Ulemadcha V'tiva Imach Katenti, all these things he was asking that the Ovis should help him, that the makifim of the kedusha of Ovis should help him be mamshich the level of makif into Tohu. And this is what Yaakov also said, that Yaakov asked that he should be saved from Esav down over here. Okay, then the pasuk says, and he split the group of people, he split his machane, he split his camp into two parts. After Yaakov heard that Esav is coming with 400 men, and that Esav is ready for war, so the pasuk says that he split his camp into two. Now, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain why did he split into two. So he explains beautifully. What's the reason why Yaakov split his family into two camps? We'll explain this by first prefacing the known difference between the Olam of Tohu and the Olam of Tikkun. He says like this. In the world of Tohu, the spheres are separated one beneath the other. In other words, you have Chochmah, you have Bina, you have Das, you have Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Yesod. They don't work together. They're all separated. In the world of Tohu, you can't have polar opposites. Either you have full Chochmah or you have full Gevurah. You can't have two. They're separated one from each other. However, in the world of Tikkun, they form channels. What does it mean they form channels? So usually it explains the Chassidus, Chochmah is the right. It's on the right side. Gevurah, Bina, right? So you have Chochmah, Chabad, Chochmah, Bina, Das. So Chochmah is on the right side, Bina on the left side, and Das is in the middle. In other words, the channel of Chochmah and the channel of Bina create Das. The channel of Chesed the channel of Gevura, create Tiferes. Netzach and Hoid create Yisai, which eventually comes out Malchus. So in the Olam of Tikkun, all the channels are working together, all the spheres are working together in order to form certain channels. The Hainu, the Alter Rebbe explains. Gimel Kavim, these three channels, Yeminu, Smel, Emtza, right, left, and center. Shakavim, so you are Mechaber Miachad Es Kain, Beis Kavim, Yeminu, Smel, Yis Miskalim Miachad. The center channel connects and unifies the right and the left channel so that they operate basically towards a single goal. Yudua, the Tiferes u'mamutza bin Chesed Gvura u'mechabram yachad. It's known that Tiferes connects Chesed, which is kindness, and Gvura, severity, and it joins them together for one purpose. L'kach Yisrael, so therefore the Yidden, they say, Shemchinas HaTikkun, we know the Yidden are at the level of Tikkun. Oimrim Gimel Pa'omen Kodesh. We say 3 times, by Nakdisha, we say, V'kora Zel Zev Omar, Kodesh, 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 Hashem Tzavokis, Melech Lord's Kavodei. The angels call to one another, and they say, Kodesh, 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 to the Lord of Hashem, who fills the world with his glory. And the question is, why do we say Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh? Because what's the Yidden all about? The Yidden are the idea of 3. Yidden connect. Yidden unite. What's the Yid's Aveda? Yid's Aveda is he unites Chachma Bina to form Das, or through Das. So what are we? Kodesh, 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 3 times that we unite. Uksiv Bahem Gamkein, it's written also in regards to the Jewish people. It says in Parshas Yisroi, V'yisim li Segula. It says, and you will be to me a Segula, which means a nation which is treasure. Now, so it says very interesting. Sha'segal hu gimel nekudis. The vowel segal is comprised of 3 dots, right? The segal is 2 dots and then 1 on the bottom. Now, what does that refer to mystically? This refers to the right, the left, and the center. In other words, the 3 dots represent the 3 channels, and the center dot represents Tiferes, which we know Tiferes merges the right and the left. As explained somewhere else. I'm sorry, I skipped. But in the world of Tohu, which Tohu, it's fragmented, it's separated, and they're not together. There's only 2 channels, as we explained. There are 2 lines. Chesed is by itself and Gvura by itself. You can't, like we said, there's no room for two opposites. Either you're all in a Chesed or you're all in Gvura. There's no 2. Okay. It's explained elsewhere. What's this idea? In the level of Tohu, the light is very abundant and the kelim are weak. Therefore, due to the weakness of the kelim of the vessel in comparison to the earth, since there's an abundance of light and the kelim are very weak, so therefore you can't contain opposite forces. You can't have chesed and gevurah together. He explains by analogy of a person. A person who's intellectually insufficient, he can't grasp, his mind is not developed, he's not going to be able to handle 2 opposing possibilities. It's either black or white. It's either chesed, it's gevurah. He can't handle both. He's not colorful. If his mind is going to lean towards favorable judgment, so then he won't be able to understand a guilty verdict. Person who thinks chesed, who thinks positive, he won't be able to understand the negative. Ubehepech, an opposite. If his mind is leaning towards guilty, somebody that there's a guilty verdict, he's not going to be able to tolerate any possibility of a favorable verdict. When IMSA comes out that he could only operate on one channel. He could only either have chesed or gvura. Can't have both. But in the level of tikkun, which we said in tikkun, there's a third channel called tiferes. Tiferes machriya bin chesed gvura, which we know tiferes. That discerns between chesed and gvura. Hainu. That even in the time of din, you could also be noite for schus, and the opposite. The fee, why? In the level of tikkun, the level of tikkun, the light is small, and the kelim are a lot. So it comes out that the vessels are so broad that they can contain the Zudiyakav Esav. Now, we explained that what was Yaakov trying to do? Yaakov was trying to tap into Esav to draw down the level of Tayu. So he has to, like the Rebbe is going to explain in a few lines, he has to basically relate to Tayu. It's like, in simple words, you have to talk Tayu's language. Yaakov is going to come with a Tiferes approach, with a Tikkun approach. In other words, he's very stuck in his ways, saying this is how it's going to be. He's never going to be able to tap into Tayu, to tap into Esav. So what does he have to do? He has to take a step back and he says, okay, I have to now relate to how Esav works. How I have to talk Esav's language. I have to relate into the Tayu language. So what did he do? So he has to now tap into the level of Tayu and the level of which is unlimited. So therefore, he had to present an offering that reached the level of Tayu. And the Rebbe is going to explain soon what that means. It's known. It's known that when you want to bring an offering, it has to match basically it has to match the level that you're trying to draw down. Because the manner of the offering, the way that you're going to bring the offering determines the drawing down. Therefore, since we know in Tayu, we explained you only have two channels. So therefore, Yaakov has to establish himself in the same way as Tayu. So then what did he do? So this is what it means that he split up the camp into two. There's dugmas elam Tayu, which this is, he has to follow the pattern of the level of Tayu, the world of Tayu. In the world of Tayu, every sphera is one under the other. You don't have the three channels that you have in Tikkun. So therefore, what did he do? He split into two, because that's Tayu. Tayu is two. You don't have Gimel Kavan over there. So he has to do an action that resembles the level of Tayu in order to relate and either to tap into the level of Tayu. And this is the way he connects to the world of Tayu in order to draw down the makif, the encompassing light from there. And for this reason, you can understand why Yaakov offered Esav the mincha offering. What did he offer him? Izim Masayim, 200 goats. Now, what does it mean, Baruchnis? The function of the mincha offering was to draw down the makif, the light. Well, this is just like similar to the concept of karbonis. You're trying to elevate through man, trying to bring down the level of man. Man is mayim nukvin, mad is mayim tkurin. So you're trying through man to elevate the level of mad. So he brought a mincha. What's the idea of a mincha? just like by a physical korban, we're trying to arouse, we're trying to be mamshich certain levels. So the korban is like the level of man, and you're trying to be mamshich mad. Yaakov is the level of man. Yaakov now wants to draw down the level of mad. So what does he do? He sends Esav a mincha. He sends him a korban mincha. Why? In order to be mamshich mad. Alpha became Al Rebbe says very, very interesting. The offering that Esav was not in accordance with the halachas of Torah. As we know, karbanos are taken specifically from kosher animals that were shechted, and so usually a korban in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, it had to be shechted by who? A kohen, had to be brought by a kohen. Sorry, it had to be brought by the kohenim, not shechted. Yeah, it had to be brought by the kohenim, and it had to be a kosher animal. The oves was different. Number one is the oves. They brought non-kosher animals, as we see. Yaakov brought non-kosher, and not only that the karbonis that the oves brought were considered acceptable, even though the oves were not at the state of kohenim. We don't find the korban in the Torah that's offered from a living animal, except for we know the Sor Shabachai, the Azazel on Yom Kippur, the goat that went to Azazel Yom Kippur. It's interesting. I don't know if I was learning this the other day. I never thought that the korban Azazel, that the Azazel is a korban. You think to yourself, you learn that there's two karbonis. One korban goes la Hashem, and the other one goes la Azazel. Maybe it's obvious, but the way the Alter Rebbe puts it is that the Azazel is also a korban. It was a korban that was brought b'chai. Interesting. And the karbonis also were brought only. We know only fats and blood are offered on the mizbech. So he says, the mincha offering that Yaakov sent to Esav included also behemoth tameis, non-kosher animals. Like it says in our parsha, Gamal and Menikos, he sent them nursing camels. And not only that, the mincha that he sent were alive and not slaughtered. So he's going to explain, why did he do that? If the ovis kept entire kolotera kula, and the idea of sending a mincha to Esav is like a korban, so why did he send it to him alive? And why did he send it to him non-kosher animals? So he explains like this. What's the idea? The elevation which Yaakov's offering was, he wanted to draw down light from the level of Makav of Eilam Atayu. The man and the mad of Eilam Atayu is different from the elevation and of Eilam Hatikun. And he explains, the Torah that we have is derived from where the world of Tikkun of Atzilus. When she calls it Chaim, like explains in the Chaim, she be Tikkun Eirus Muatim. The light is lessened. Therefore, so if the Torah that we have comes from the level of Olam of Tikkun, which we know in Tikkun, the Eires are small and the Kalim are a lot. In other words, it's very, very concise. It's very particular. So therefore, the Torah that's derived from that we derive it from also has dikdukim and tzimtzum. It's very particular with limitations. Therefore, the Torah explicitly explains the Torah is very precise in the laws. You ask a question: why is Hashem so precise? And the karbanos have to be brought in this manner and that manner, and it has to be from this animal and this age. Why? Because the level of Torah that we have is the level of tikkun of Elam Atzilus. In that level of tikkun, everything is systemized. Everything is organized. Everything is a system. If you're not gonna if you're not going to use the machine properly, if you're not going to follow the system, then the whole thing will crash. So you have to follow Torah to the exact. Otherwise, what you're trying to accomplish through mitzvahs, we're not talking about schar and oinish. We're talking about pashut, the way Hashem set up the world in a systemized way, that you do A, you draw down B. You do C, you draw down D. That's the element of tikkun. And therefore, karbanos have to be in a certain halachas. It has to be from kosher animals. It has to be from 3 specific animals, right? The cow, the sheep, and the goats. It has to be slaughtered. There's many halachas, if you learn in the Mishnayos and the Gemara, that invalidate a korban. Similarly, regarding to bring the korban, there are many, many specifics. Because the entire Torah operates in this manner of limits and parameters. Why? Because the Torah, this level of Torah is derived from Tikkun, because the lights are condensed within the vessels. Therefore, the Torah is particular in many different limits and precise halachas. It explains like this: Yaakov was trying to cause an elevation of Makiv the Tohu in Tikkun Canal, which we know there's an unlimited light over there. That's why the light is so strong that the vessel is not able to contain it, and it remains encompassing. Therefore, he sent the mincha, which mincha is an elevation offering, in order to bring down. And what did he send? He sent camels that nurse, and they were all alive and not slaughtered. Since in the level of Tohu, there's an infinite light, there's no contraction over there, there's no limitation over there. So therefore, he's able to send even non-kosher animals because there's no limitation. Answer Baruch Hu, Kol Yochel Balkal. Hashem could handle everything. After Meim Shu Chaim, even if they're tummy and alive. That's what it says. The Gemara says, in regards to the pig, that in the future will be transformed and become pure. Hainu, when Mashiach comes, the death will and then tumah will be eradicated. Because eventually, when Mashiach comes, the level of Atzmus will be revealed to the extent that even the Chazar will be elevated. However, now it doesn't work. Okay, and therefore, Yaakov who sent the mincha offering to Esav, so he's just explaining again that Yaakov sent non-kosher animals. He sent them nursing camels. In other words, not only were the camels not inappropriate, but on the contrary, the root of the camels are very high. It says that Eliezer, the servant of Avram, took 10 camels from the camels of Avram, and the best of his masters. Gomel, camel, comes from the terminology, the same letters as goimel, which means generosity. He explains Chassidus that the source of the camels are from the level of chesed, so the 10 of Tohu. So the 10 camels that Eliezer brought were basically the 10 aspects of kindness of Tohu, and therefore they're connected to v'chol tuv adena biyad. This is the idea that David HaMelech says that he calmed his neshama like gomel, like a suckling on his mother. So he says, Yaakov was able to do this. Nowadays, after the Torah was given, which we are holding at the level of Tikkun, so in Tikkun there's different halachas of what's Torah and Tamei. And somebody who eats chelev will be surely cut off, because we're holding now at the level of Tikkun. So basically, just explain in simple what we learned today. We learned those who came late. On page 48, we learned from Vayemer Yaakov till the end of the paragraph on page Chofei from Vayakum Balayla. So we explained that Yaakov Avinu was basically davening that the Avi should help him, that the level of that the iris of Tohu, the iris of Tikkun that the way the Avis are tapped into should help him draw down the level of Makiv of Tohu. So therefore, he did all these different. He sent him minches and he sent him non-kosher animals. Why? Because Yaakov knew that he has to tap in, he has to relate to Esav, he has to talk Esav's language. So how is he going to relate to Esav? He can't come through the level of Tikkun, which we know Tikkun has 3 channels. It unites. By the level of Tohu, you have either Chesed or Gevurah. There's no Tiferes over there. You can't have 2 opposites correlate together. So therefore, he sent him different animals, and he sent him Gemalim, and he sent him Izim. Why? He sent him in order to tap into him. And also, he split the camp. Why did he split the camp into 2? Again, because that's the level of Tohu. Tohu is 2. It's either A or B. You can't have A and B come together. So he split the camp into 2.
There's no third part.
There's no third part.
Yes, you can have one or the other, no?
You can have the one or the other, but not together. Tiferes is bringing them together. So the idea of splitting them into them is in order as vital preparation, or it's part of the avodah in order to tap into the level of Tohu, which that's the level of Esav, and he felt that if he taps into him, then he will succeed in bringing down even higher earths. Okay, have a good day and a good vote.
What was this thing about the 200?
Why 200?
Yeah.